What are some signs that your ex is thinking about you? Today, we're going to be covering 7 of them. Hey there, it's Clay with modernlove.life. And today we are, of course, going to be talking about 7 signs that your ex is thinking about you. So the first one is that the two of you had a very high drama previous interaction of some sort, especially if it was recent, right? So if you got into some sort of fight, or if there was some sort of like big emotional outpouring or confession, maybe even something positive, right? Like maybe you had a great experience with one another, you had a moment of understanding, maybe intimacy, closeness, something like that. If that was your most recent interaction, then chances are they're probably thinking about you a lot. After all, when we have a significant, meaningful interaction, we tend to focus in on it, especially if it's something that kind of surprises us. And if that happens, then our mind is probably going to keep circling back to that. Like, oh, wow, wasn't that a great experience? Or, oh, wow, that was a really weird argument that we just had. Where did that come from? Or, I can't believe they did this, right? That's definitely one thing that could indicate that your ex is thinking about you. The second thing is if, maybe this is maybe on more of a longer time frame here. So maybe the two of you broke up, many months or maybe even years ago. But if they tend to look back on the period of time when the two of you were together in sort of an idealized kind of way, like, oh yeah, I remember that time when we, used to live in Southwest Portland and we would go to all these nice little bars and all that stuff and just hang out and listen to music. If they just like reminisce about that period of time, but it was also a period of time when the two of you were together in a relationship, then that means that they probably are thinking about you as well too. Because, we often have our relationships so intermingled in with different chapters of our lives, especially if it was a significant, meaningful relationship. If that person was in our life during a great period of time, we can then tend to associate that person with a great, experience, and we then start to think about that person a lot too. Just know that if they are talking very positively about a period of time in their life that you also were a part of, then that's probably also a good indication that they're thinking about you. Next up is if when they were together with you, they were really living into their values, really living into what was important to them about life. Maybe the two of you traveled a lot when the two of you were together. And if travel and seeing the world is an important thing for them, and they were like really living into that value, really fully experiencing that to the utmost level, then chances are that, they're thinking about you, because you being in a relationship with them was maybe not necessarily allowing them to, but it was definitely associated with them living into their highest values that they have for themselves. And so we want to just keep in mind that if they were living into their values at a very high level, especially when they were together with you, then they're probably thinking about you. That's not to say that you were necessarily sort of the doorway to them living into their values. Maybe you were, but they were probably feeling fulfilled and happy in their life at that point in time. And so they're probably also looking back positively on your relationship that the two of you had together. Sign number 4 is if the two of you being together brought a lot of positivity to their life. And I'm not just talking about like, the sugar high of a new relationship, or, oh wow, you're hot, or something like that. But if it brought like a lot of positivity to their life in some way, like, maybe the two of you had like this really close soul bond connection, or maybe the two of you were able to just connect in a way that they couldn't with someone else, or maybe the two of you just really helped each other grow and become the best versions of yourself, or something like that. This just shows that when they think of you, they think about the greatness that they could be and the depth of positivity that they could have in their life, okay? And just like how we've been talking about with some of these other previous things, they're going to start to say, hey, maybe that also spills over into you as well too. Maybe it's not even that way. Maybe they're actually thinking of you, but they are just openly talking about these other aspects of their life. So it's not necessarily, it's like one spills over into the other, but it could also be like, okay, yeah, I'm thinking about you, but I don't want to just like come right out and say it, but really, I'm just going to talk about this great time in my life or something like that. I mean, you probably understand what I'm saying, right? Next up is if they seem to be watching or following or interacting with you on social media quite a bit. Like obviously, if they're talking to you, if they're sending you messages and stuff like that, that's a pretty big tell. But if they are, viewing things that you post, like some of these platforms have a way that you can see who's viewed your posts or stories or whatever. Maybe they are recently following you again. maybe they are liking or hearting or whatever it is on whatever platform, different things that you post, that is obviously a sign that they are thinking about you. Of course, maybe your thing just sort of slid across their feed, but still, they took the time to interact with it. They took the time to read it. They took the time to look at it, and they decided to respond to it. This is especially true if the two of you don't necessarily need to have your lives interwoven with one another. I mean, like, obviously, if you have mutual friends and you see each other all the time, like, that's one thing. But if, maybe you haven't seen each other in a while, they don't need to be in contact with you, they don't need to be following you or whatever, but they're doing it anyway, that's a pretty good tell that they're actually thinking about you. Thing number 6 is if they seem to somehow keep accidentally showing up in your life somehow, whether that's, they seem to end up in the same places as you, or they somehow just sort of pop into your awareness one way or another, either on social media or in real life or in some other way. Now, I'm not saying they're going out of the way to stalk you, although they could be. Maybe the two of you are just on the same energetic wavelength, and so you just happen to go to the same places, or you just happen to show up in the same areas, or you just happen to go to the same events, or you just happen to know the same people, or whatever the case might be. That's definitely could be something that's going on. Of course, it could just be that they're like, yeah, I know you're going to be at this place, so maybe if I just keep going there, eventually we'll run into each other. That could be what's going on as well too. But there, of course, are the possibility for just these, serendipitous, synchronistic kinds of things where it's just like, oh, hey, I didn't think I'd see you here, and then there you are. Like, once when I was in college, I went on this international semester abroad thing in Italy, and there was this guy that was in the program with us, and we went to this like small little Italian hill town somewhere up in, I think it was like Tuscany or something. We were in this like small little town, and we were just walking through this plaza, and this guy, he just stops and says like, I know that girl. I know that. So he went over her and he talked to her. It was this girl that he went to school with like years before from some small town in, I don't know, Indiana or something. And somehow she had ended up going to cooking school here. And like, obviously there was no stalking involved, I don't think. That was just one of those like synchronistic things where somehow they just ran into each other on another continent on the other side of the world when they hadn't seen each other in years. There was no orchestration of any sort. It just somehow these two dots of consciousness out of 6 or 7 billion just happened to collide again in a way that no one could have ever expected. That's a bit of a tangent, but yeah, that can happen. Anyway, next up, and the last one here on our list, is that if they had a meaningful impact on you, and if you have a strong urge to think about them and a strong urge to connect with them and a strong feeling when it comes to them, then chances are they probably feel the same way too. As we get together, our energies sort of get kind of connected and mixed up and bonded with one another. What we want to keep in mind is that when we are thinking about someone, oftentimes that person may be thinking about us as well too, okay? Because if they had a meaningful impact on you, then chances are you probably also had a meaningful impact on them. And so that's definitely something to keep in mind through all of this. And if you want to learn more about how to have a more meaningful impact on the people around you, especially your ex or anyone else for that matter, I'd really recommend you check out our course called the X Solution Program. You can find it over at modernlove.life/ESP, or also just in the link down below in the description box. It really tells you how to create these meaningful, significant emotional connections with other people through what we call advanced relational skills. We've been helping people with this for over 10 years now at this point, so we've been around for a long time, and we fully intend on being around for quite a while still. But anyway, you can go ahead and check that out below, or if you want to just kind of continue on this YouTube journey, we also have this video playlist right here on advanced relational skills as well, which would be a great place for you to continue this journey.